Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jerika Duncan. Norah is on assignment. Her interview with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen in just a moment. But first, American Brittney Griner is on her way home. She was arrested for possession of cannabis oil nearly 10 months ago, sentenced to 9 years in prison, and sent to a penal colony in Russia. Her release was part of a prisoner swap for international arms dealer Viktor Bout. The so-called merchant of death was serving a 25-year federal prison sentence in Illinois for conspiring to kill Americans and for supporting terrorism. Left out of the deal was ex-Marine Paul Whelan, imprisoned in Russia since 2018 on espionage charges. We have team coverage tonight of this story and begin with CBS's Margaret Brennan. Margaret, good evening.
And good evening to you, Jerika. These final details came together within just the past 48 hours. U.S. officials feared it could all fall apart, and it wasn't until very early this morning that officials here in Washington breathed a sigh of relief when Brittney Griner finally boarded a U.S. plane.
I'm glad to be able to say that Brittney's in good spirits. She's relieved to finally be heading home.
Gathered in the Oval Office, President Biden and Brittney Griner's wife, Sherelle, spoke by phone with the 32-year-old basketball star once she had been handed over.
Today, I'm just standing here, overwhelmed with emotions.
Russian state media showed video of the swap on the tarmac at Al Bateen Airport in Abu Dhabi. Griner and convicted arms dealer Viktor Bout walked towards one another and then headed to separate planes home. In Russian video filmed days earlier, Griner is seen signing what appears to be release forms.
Do you know where I'm heading to?
No.
No?
No.
You fly back home?
To the U.S.
To the U.S.
Okay.
President Biden agreed last week to free Bout in order to bring Griner home. It follows months of public pressure from Griner's fellow athletes and quiet contact between the CIA and Russian intelligence, who exchanged messages between Vladimir Putin's Kremlin and Mr. Biden. Throughout the summer, the Biden administration had tried to bring home both Griner and 52-year-old Paul Whelan, a private corporate security contractor who had been imprisoned for 4 years on espionage charges. But Russia refused.
I wish that Paul Whelan had been on that plane, too.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
We got to the point where it was clear that there was an opportunity to bring Brittney back. The choice wasn't between getting one American or the other back. It was the choice before us was one or none.
Whelan was also left behind in April when the Biden administration negotiated the release of Marine veteran Trevor Reed. Today, a devastated Whelan spoke by phone from a Russian penal colony.
My treatment is also much different than others held for espionage at other prisons.
Meanwhile, Griner is en route to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, where she will get an evaluation.
Today, my family is whole, but as you all are aware, there's so many other families who are not whole.
Speaking of families not being whole, Margaret, what's next for Paul Whelan's attempt to come home?
Well, Jerika, Secretary Blinken told me this afternoon that this was just a one-for-one transaction, nothing more and nothing less. In other words, this isn't a diplomatic breakthrough that opens the door to other opportunities. And it also isn't clear what other cards the U.S. has left to play here to secure the release of Whelan or another American, Mark Fogel, who's been detained on drug charges. Over the course of the last few months, the U.S. has offered numerous Russians who are being held here in the U.S., and the Kremlin declined to take the offer. Their top priority was a one-for-one swap and Viktor Bout himself.
All right, Margaret Brennan covering the story from the very beginning. Thank you.